Welcome everyone to another episode of Real Tax Talks. I have here Andrew Overton with me, who will be sharing some of his experiences with us. Again, this is Michael Coronado with Pronto Advisors and Real Tax Talks, our podcast about everything having to do with real estate investment, capital strategies, and how to deal with, those pesky taxes. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, if you'd like to share.
Sure. Well, my name is Andrew Overton. I am an attorney and an owner of a real estate development consulting firm called Creative Land Strategies. And we also have a real estate development certificate program as part of Creative Land Strategies to teach the basics of real estate development. Not just the basics, but bringing you up to date on all aspects of real estate development that one would need to understand in order to get started. So somebody asked me once, how did I get started and what were the challenges with that? And I got started on accident. So I had graduated from law school and taken the bar exam in one state and was offered a position in another state. So I took the position in the other state, and it was with a real estate development firm. I didn't have a license to practice law, so I managed projects for them. And I drew the short straw, if you will, literally drew the short straw, and was assigned a project in Cleveland, Ohio. Not a place I'd ever been or thought about going. And so I got the project, and they gave me a checkbook and an American Express card, and they said, go manage this project. You're going to have to hire 8 or 9 people. And it was for a telecommunications development. So the client was T-Mobile, VoiceStream at the time. And I, at the time, thought that cell phones worked off of satellites. I had never given a single thought to a cell phone tower. So the project entailed building 103 cell sites. So we had 103 real estate deals to do. And our timeline was, I think, 12 to 14 months. And we ended up coming in 4 months ahead of schedule and $17 million under budget. And I was a hero. It looked fantastic under these circumstances. And the reason that I looked so good under these circumstances was that we got through zoning so quickly, because zoning for projects such as cell towers or out-of-home advertising, things like that, can be a real challenge. And projects often get held up and sent into court. And it's a years-long process. So I was a zoning genius, a guru, if you will. I just didn't tell anybody that 90% of my sites didn't have to go through zoning. So I looked great, and I was an expert, and that's how I started in real estate development. About 6 months after that project, I went out on my own and started Creative Land Strategies. At the time, it was just a huge boom in telecommunications, cell towers. This was early on. I remember I had a cell phone probably in the late 90s, but they certainly weren't everywhere. Back then, it was still very expensive. And by the time I left that side of the industry, it was because we had, I think, 105% penetration, which meant 105% of the people had cell phones. So more, 5% of the people had more than one cell phone on that. So that just shows you the need for the infrastructure and what drove the growth, particularly with the launch of the iPhone. The iPhone drove crazy amounts of growth because of the data they used. Nobody ever anticipated that it would use that much data. And so the industry saw that you were going to need about twice the number of cell towers that you had at the time. So it was a big industry. From there, I just didn't enjoy working for those clients, the corporate clients, and moved more towards working with developers and young developers. And so our consulting firm, while it focused on planning and zoning, particularly things like community outreach analysis, we do economic impact analysis, and those were our focus on that. But we had a lot of young developers. I don't mean by age, but just people that didn't have a lot of experience that we worked with. And one of the things that got wearisome over the years was they were spending money and we were spending time on educating them on the very basics. So they wanted to get into real estate development, but they didn't really understand what that meant and what they would have to do that and who's involved. And so they're spending money on us as consultants, but they're really paying us for a very base education. And in looking around, look, I didn't get an education in real estate development. I had to learn it, and it took years to learn it because it's hard. The reality is, and as part of our education program, we make it very clear that this is hard. This is not you're going to buy your first property in 3 days and build it out within 6 months and you're going to make $1 million. No, you're not. It's just not, that doesn't work. And so we'd have people say, hey, I'm going to go take this seminar. It's $7,000 for 2 days. I'm going to learn everything about real estate development. And no, you're not. You're just not. You're there to get sold. And, so that's why we looked at building our own certificate program so that people could get that level of education. It's enough that they can move forward. So that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
That's amazing. And I know you kind of sold yourself short there when you said only 10% of the sites needed the first part of your story about the 103 towers, but that's still 10, 11 towers that you had to go to zoning for. That's still impressive, given my limited experience in this industry. And then also to then have kind of that foresight of, let me educate people so that they're better able to accomplish their goal of being a developer, right? Because you don't have, I guess, everyone doesn't have unlimited capital to go and do these things. So, but if you're kind of pushing people and guiding them into the process, it's right. I wish I would have known about this before. I'll tell you on a aside from the tax and advisory, I went out and did it with the partner. We bought it a lot, and we built a multifamily, and there was a learning curve there, absolutely, about how to do that. And we luckily purchased it shovel ready, so it was a lot less intensive in that part, but it was still a lot of I now know there's no way I'm going vertical till we've started working on the connections to water and sewer, because that takes infinitely longer than that was my big takeaway, where don't marry a bank with the construction financing. Shop multiple of them until you consummate the deal. And then I think the second one was making sure that connection. Those are my two big lessons learned on that. But I think, and that was my first ground up development. So, obviously I had a good, GC partner and those types of things. But I'm interested more. So tell me a little bit more about the coursework. Do you partner with the students, or is it more of a certificate for them, not to necessarily show it externally, but for them to know they have this in a better position to go and make deals?
Whether they want to show it externally is up to them, I guess. It's a new program, so it's not something that holds a lot of sway. Like, I don't know that this is something that you can go in and say, hey, I have this certificate, except for them to be able to say, hey, I understand what I'm doing. And so this, while our ideal partners in this are people that have not necessarily a high net worth, because that is defined differently depending upon who you're talking to, but people with enough money to get involved with real estate development and have their own money to do that. And whether that's with partnering with other people or how they do it. But it's a lot of people that a lot of our clients are, 35 to 50 that have money in the bank and want to do something new. They want to have control over their careers and their lives. And look, I say this about real estate development, that it's a great profession for somebody with ADHD and a really, really good administrative assistant, right? It can keep everything organized. But the number of hats that you have to wear, and I think this is what a lot of people don't understand about it, is you're like the conductor of a symphony or the director of a play. And you have all these different sciences to manage within that. So for a director of a play, you've got a lighting designer, you've got a sound designer, you've got a set designer, you've got a prop person, you've got actors. You have all these different people that all have a different skill set, and they require you to be able to communicate with them each. So you have to know enough about what each one of them does to have those conversations. And that's a real challenge for a lot of people, right? Particularly if you don't have a background in talking to architects or engineers. Like, that's a unique language for each one. And, if you can get a team together that's successful, don't ever lose them. Keep that team together. Your contractors, your construction, your engineers, your architects, all of that. So, yeah, I think giving them the base knowledge of all that, like how to build a team, how to select them. Somebody asked me this question not too long ago about why do we offer a course in ethics? And because you have to, right? Because development is about, you have to have trust. There are big developers that come in with their money and they throw it around and they don't do what they say they're going to do, and they don't honor their commitments. We do kind of ground up with development. So our idea is we go into community first and ask what that community wants. I don't mean theoretically. We literally go in and sit down with neighborhood associations, neighbors, things like that. We know what we want to build. We want to make it their idea that we build it, so that we don't have any difficulties when it comes to zoning. Because if you know the answer going in, you're a lot better off. And if you have the support of the community, you're a lot better off. And what we've seen over and over is that the people that go in and they make these concessions, particularly big developers, they make concessions to the community, but they don't honor them. At the end of the day, they just do what they were going to do in the first place. And that's unethical, right? And so that's why we stress ethics. It's one of 8 courses, but it's important.
That's interesting about commitments and community engagement. I don't know if this ever made it nationally, but there was a very interesting case here in South Florida, in a neighborhood known as Coconut Grove. Don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's very bohemian and very nice. But there happens to be a strip mall between US 1 and where the homes are, and there was a Kmart, and obviously Kmart went bankrupt many years ago, and there was a vacant Kmart, and there was a Home Depot. Home Depot wanted to move into that location, and they wanted to expand it, and they went before so many board hearings, and all the neighbors were arguing about the trucks and how late the trucks could come in, and they were asking for concession after concession. And arguably, I've got to look up the picture, but the artist renderings of this Home Depot was probably the most beautiful Home Depot I've ever seen, with trees, with palm trees, and then they were going to do a garage. They were going to do parking on the roof to have more green area in front of the Home Depot. It was a really well thought through thing.
Yeah.
And they kept engaging the community, probably, and to your point, they engaged them probably too late. They should have engaged early on. They thought, oh, this is a commercial space. We're gonna build this and we're gonna do something nice. And in came the neighbors and fought and fought and fought. And then they finally came to a point and realized we can't satisfy what the neighbors want. So since we don't need any permits to just open the store, any permissions to do anything, to just open the store as is, we'll just hang our Home Depot sign up and start operating tomorrow. And that's what they did. So now there's an old Kmart that's just painted in Home Depot colors.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it could have been this, oh my God, spectacular Home Depot store that might have been a model for other areas. So yeah, I could completely see that where they lost it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's because of what you just described, is that they've tried everything they can to get it through, and it just becomes easier to slap a coat of paint on it. It's not what they wanted, but they wanted the location, right? And I absolutely get that. But if you're going in for a 2-year fight on zoning, it definitely changes your finances, right? I mean, because time, value, money. So yeah, I don't know if this is something that you talk about with your clients a lot, but one of the things that we really encourage with clients is the self-directed IRA as a strategy as part of your capital stack. And I didn't know. I've been in this business for 26 years, and I didn't know what a self-directed IRA was till 3 years ago. I found out about it, and I'm like, well, why didn't anybody tell me about this? This is like, it seems like something everybody should know, right? And as I got to learn and understand what it was, and the laws are a little bit funky around it, but realizing that only 4% of IRAs out there are self-directed IRAs means there's just like a wealth of untapped capital sitting there waiting for somebody to the wealth of capital that's out there available to people to increase development. And with a lot of what we're seeing in the industry right now, it seems like every week right now we're seeing new laws come online with regard that have a huge impact on real estate development. So as I told you, I'm in Virginia at the moment, and Senate Bill 531 was passed and signed into law in Virginia earlier in April. And that made all municipalities, all jurisdictions within Virginia have to allow accessory dwelling units by right. So you have a residential piece of property. It doesn't matter what the acreage is, but you've got enough to put 1,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit on there. You as an individual can immediately be a real estate developer, right? So you can build that by right up to 1,000 square feet, and it's a dramatic change in the law, and it took the state to step in to do it, because what we've seen time and time again is municipalities will study, like we're going to study that. And then they study it, and then they write reports, and they study those reports, and then they do another study, but they never make any changes. This is going on in Evanston, Illinois right now. I was talking to an associate of mine in Chicago, and they're like, Drew, I went to yet another hearing in Evanston, and they're just never going to change things, right? There's not. It's just not going to happen. So it's good to see states stepping in. California did it. It looks like Georgia is about to. Utah did some. And I think it's fantastic that they're doing it and they're moving so quickly on it. It's disheartening to know that it's been sitting there for all this time and people couldn't do it. And so we found ourselves in a housing crisis. It's a national emergency, what we're dealing with. So it's a great time to become a developer, and I think it's a really great time to become a small developer, and not necessarily the big firms.
That's interesting you say that. So in Florida, they haven't taken it up at the state level, and then depending on how familiar with Miami-Dade County, there's a bunch of municipalities, a bunch of different cities within, but the unincorporated parts that are not part of any city, Miami-Dade County has now said that the same rules that you can build an ADU by right. There's no longer any additional requirements. So it's great if you're not in any of the municipalities, or if you're not in Coral Gables or a city of Miami proper, but if you're in Miami-Dade County, you could go ahead and do that. And it's interesting that you say that the opportunity. I think the opportunity is there. I've actually said the same thing about buying fix and flip should be fix, flip with an ADU, and someone needs to come up with a standardized, already approved footprint that you can just rotate however you need for the property and just drop it in on all of these 1950s, 1960 homes that have a little bit extra land. And folks could use that for multi-generational living. They could use it for additional income in order to be able to pay their mortgage, right? And now with Fannie Mae allowing you to incorporate 80% of the rent from the additional unit into your qualification. Now this allows you to move into different areas that are not necessarily better, but are maybe better situated, better locations of where you're going to be, more infill, and allow you to kind of have that highlight. So I'm excited that's happening at state levels in other states. I hope in Florida they do. The legislature takes it up and promotes it, because it's definitely a boom for everybody.
And it is. I had a discussion with somebody who felt like this was just some sort of liberal Democrat scam. I'm like, no, this is a national movement meant to benefit everybody in every state. So that's what Yes in My Backyard. I don't know if you're familiar with the organization, YIMBY. They're an organization that pushes these changes nationwide. Lobby for them everywhere. And this is something that's going on across the country, and it's apolitical. It is, we have a problem right now. We need to solve it, and we're not moving fast enough. I feel like we're not moving fast enough, even with the states doing it. I feel like the federal government should step in, take action.
I think I could see that, or the states can offer this kind of accelerated, pre-approved. And I know Miami-Dade County did we were talking about studying things. They did do a competition of like who could design these ADU floor plans. I don't know if their plan is kind of how I think, where they should just say, these are your pre-approved plans, pick from these 5 plans and get immediate approval, and all you got to do is start digging tomorrow, right? You pull permit tomorrow. If they did that, you just got to pop it on, get a survey with a site plan, and say, yes, go. I could totally see that being a boom, but I think maybe federal, but federal maybe should incentivize it. States that
that's one of the ways they could do it is the carrot, not the stick. But there's also some arguments. There's some really good articles out there about local zoning violating the 14th Amendment, and nobody's ever taken it that far. But I've read the articles and I've read the laws, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that happening. But we'll see. Yeah, it's but I think what you touched on with the kind of pre-approved structures, is a great idea, and it gives developers. This is an opening for developers that want to focus on ADUs. It's a great way to get into it, and if they can get some standardized structures that will go through permitting without anything, that would be great. Really process.
And this is great too. I mean, I don't know what price per square foot is in your area, but in South Florida, it's hitting almost $1,000 a square foot, $1,200.
Oh,
yes. In desirable areas. And so now if you could build one of these pre-planned things that maybe you could keep to 300 a foot, 400, under 400 a
Yeah.
foot, 300 a foot, you have a $600 a foot differential that you can make just on this additional square footage.
Yeah. That's crazy. $1,000 a square foot. I haven't been to Miami in 6 or 7 years, but
Depending on the area, especially like some of the smaller, more desirable homes in more desirable areas.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
1,500.
But I tell you, where I am sitting right now is a town called Damascus, Virginia. And even here, which is a town of 800 people in Appalachia, you're seeing prices at $300 a square foot, which is insane for this area. And when I first came back down south from New York, without any intention of staying, we were just visiting at the time, came across a house right on the river, just a little 3-bedroom, 1 bath. I think it was about 1,500 square feet, again, right on the water. It was $100,000. That was it. And this is not that long ago. It was 2015. And yeah, that's now $300 a square foot. Well, it would be, I should say that. It would be, but it got wiped out by the hurricane after we had sold it. So we had sold the house, and the person that bought it from us was also from New York, and they opted not to get flood insurance on the house. So they were in there about 9 months before we just got wiped out.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's
oh no, don't be sorry for us. We sold at the absolute right time. So
I'm sorry for them though. That's still
sorry you didn't get insurance. You're bad.
Especially on the water. That's where you.
Yeah, but what's interesting is the flood insurance for the house was $500 or $600 a month. It varied, which was a lot, right? And so I understand why somebody wouldn't want to get it, but they did. And it's an interesting topic, is that we got hit here by Hurricane Helene last year. So I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and Damascus, Virginia, and both of those got hit really hard by Hurricane Helene. And so there's certainly a lot of cost involved with that. But something that's interesting, and I know you guys have insurance issues in Florida, right, that are really difficult to mitigate, particularly on existing homes. And you can plan better on your construction and what that costs you. But we're starting to see here the insurance rates are going to go up across the board because of Hurricane Helene. And when people think about developing properties, it's something that they're going to have to think about and incorporate, is what is that increase going to be, and how does that affect?
It's interesting here because there's sort of like two insurance markets. It's a newer construction, you're paying substantially less because it's in the most up-to-date code, impact windows, the right roof with a wind velocity. They've got it really down packed. So something that's been built in the last 5-ish years is going to have potentially half or a third of the cost of an older home, which is something people don't consider when they purchase a property.
Yeah.
I consider it even when I buy a car, because I've had that experience, right? Like my payment right at the time went down, but my payment went up because my insurance went up on a vehicle. So I learned my lesson. You got to make sure you include insurance, but on homes or on real estate in particular, even if it's commercial, it's night and day what you pay on a new structure because of that, right? They're built more able to withstand these things. And after Hurricane Andrew, which hit South Florida, it's going to be 30, is it 35 years already? Wow, it's something amazing. It's going to be 34, 35 years. the code was really strengthened, and it just became the gold standard. And I think it's carried throughout Florida, and it's just, as long as you're not too close to the water and the water doesn't take you over, generally speaking, your homes are able to withstand the wind a lot better. And because of that, the insurers are saying it's a safer bet, because replacing a roof is easy, right? Like some shingles, you got some leaks, or replace your roof. That's another, it's $20,000, $30,000. It's not as major as everything in the home, having to redo the home and all of those things. So that's really amazing. I did want to touch on one quick thing, because we kind of glazed over it. You talked about capital early on, and people having sufficient capital to do development. You also talked about the self-directed IRAs. I was going to mention two things. I want to, I guess, give at least a quick overview of the self-directed IRA. It's basically, instead of using your IRA to invest in the stock market, you can, as a self-directed, there are vehicle or methodologies for you to invest it in real estate. And so now that opens up that capital, because a lot of people have that money in their retirement accounts, and now they can move that into real estate and not just necessarily the stock market. So that's one of the pros. The second pro is that as you make money on this, right, you're growing tax-free. And if it was a Roth IRA, you're never going to pay taxes on that appreciation. So there's definitely the pros and cons. That's one of the pros. There's some intricacies, and I'm not going to go over it right now because it's a lot. But it's just, that's the high level of what's exciting about self-directed IRA. So if you say, I don't have money and I want to invest in real estate, but I do have this retirement account, that's really something that you could potentially tap, as long as you follow the methodology. But so that's one way you could do it. But I think one of the questions I have for you, and I think this is the thing I discovered, is you always need more capital than you think. Is that accurate when it comes to development?
Yeah, it is. We are a data-driven firm. So when we work with our clients, everything is about data. It's not the old school way of doing a deal on the back of a napkin. Everything, it gives you the confidence if you have the data to support you. And no matter how much data you have, and we cover it all, you never have enough capital. You're never going to sit there towards the end of the project and say, what are we going to do with this $1 million sitting in the account? It's just not going to happen, right? And you have to, go back briefly to the ethics thing. You have to have trust of your partners, of your banks. And we don't see a lot of traditional lending. There are certain projects that can get funded, but without the relationships for our clients, you're looking at different ways of building that capital stack. So we see a lot, because of who our clients are, we see a lot of people doing friends and family raises, and which is great, limited partnerships, things like that. We don't really advise. No, I'm going to avoid that. Sorry. But we do see, I just recently did a hard money deal, and, it's with someone I know, and I know that they, have no issues with loaning the money. They get a great return on it. And this is one of the ways they make a lot of money, and they do development deals on their own. I've never had them step in and say, hey, I want to be a part of whatever this project is that either I'm doing or one of my clients is doing. They just cut a check, and we know the terms, and that's it.
That's it. That's interesting. Yeah. Actually, it's funny you said that. And that's how I started in real estate investment. I was loaning money for like smaller deals back in the early 2000s. That's how I was being the hard money. Have all the money. I got friends and family to pile it in together. I made the deals happen, and then I distributed everything. But that's how I got started. So
it's a great business. If you have the money to do it, it's a great business. You get a great return.
And I knew it was always at risk, right? I mean, there was 100% at risk, but it was worthwhile in many of those deals, because they own land outright. So it was really the only loan was the building, and so that on construction. So yeah, those are amazing. Well, Andrew, I think we've gone over, but it's been really, really interesting getting to know you and hearing a lot about your experience. Anything else you want to share with folks?
No, I've shared enough, Michael.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Well, you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
You too. Thanks.